Senator Cruz, thank you very much for joining me again, sir.
Greta, great to be with you.
Well, on May 11th, Title 42 will be lifted, and everyone is trying to figure out, what we're going to do, what's going to happen. Well, one of the things the Biden administration is now touting is that it has reached an agreement with Mexico, allowing for people coming from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, when they cross our border, for us to return those four nationalities back to Mexico. Your thoughts on this? And this is just part of what they're proposing.
Well, look, if that's real, that's a step in the right direction. It's the first positive thing they may have done on the border in 2.5 years. What I can tell you is what their practice has been from the day Joe Biden took the oath of office until today. And their practice has been to refuse to follow the law and to allow complete and open borders. There were 3 specific steps Joe Biden did his first week in office that caused this crisis. Number 1, he immediately halted construction of the border wall. Number 2, he reinstated the disastrous policy of catch and release, so that now when we apprehend someone, they turn around and let them go. And number 3, he pulled out of the incredibly successful Remain in Mexico agreement, which enabled people who came into Mexico illegally to remain in Mexico while their U.S. asylum case was proceeding. Those 3 decisions, all political, caused this problem. If they are, in fact, going back to deporting some of the people coming illegally, that is a step in the right direction. The way you stop this problem, Joe Biden could stop this problem tomorrow by reversing the 3 decisions he made, by building the border wall, by ending catch and release, and by reinstating Remain in Mexico. It does not work to secure the border so long as you have Democrats in office who are unwilling to deport anyone, because as long as people know if they get here they can stay, it draws millions and millions and millions, and that's why we've seen over 6 million illegal immigrants come in under Joe Biden's presidency.
All right, let me tell you what I see as sort of a partial problem with this proposal. Look, everything that we can do that can help, I'm in favor. However, he's allowing 4 of these nationalities to be turned back to Mexico. I was recently in Colombia at the staging ground for people to walk up through the Darien Gap into the United States. When I was there, I was told that the month before, which would have been March, that they had counted. Now, these are just the ones that are counted. 87 different nationalities. So when we talk about these 4 that we're going to send back, that if you do the math, that's 83. Now, the bulk of them, a lot of them are Venezuelan, but in that group of the 4 is Haiti, and those are real asylum seekers because they have a failed government. Their president was assassinated 2 years ago, and they don't have any president, and it's run by gangs. So, while I appreciate some steps forward, I think that we're not truly looking at it from a global perspective.
Well, there is a process to seek asylum, but the process to seek asylum does not start with crossing illegally into America. That's part of why the Remain in Mexico agreement works so well. That was an agreement that President Trump had negotiated with the president of Mexico. And Mexico did a couple of things. Number 1, it put about 6,000 troops on its southern border. As you know, Greta, the southern border of Mexico is much, much smaller than the 2,000-mile southern border of the United States. And so it's much easier to stop the flow of migrants on the southern border of Mexico than it is on the southern border of the United States. So that was part of Remain in Mexico. But the most important part of it was that the vast majority of people coming illegally into this country, as you just noted, are not from Mexico. They're from other countries. Many of them are from Central America. Many of them are from South America. And what Remain in Mexico said is everyone who is coming illegally into Mexico stays in Mexico, remains in Mexico. They can fill out asylum paperwork. Their asylum case can proceed, but they don't get to cross over into the United States. They don't get released. And what happened when Remain in Mexico was signed, when it began being implemented, the numbers of illegal immigration, they plummeted because there's an enormous pull factor. DHS has interviewed illegal immigrants coming to America, and they ask them, why are you coming? And the answer they give, they say, well, we get a permiso, which means we get allowed, we get a permit, we get allowed to be free and allowed to stay. And as long as that is happening, millions will come. The only way to fix it is to make it clear, if you come illegally to this country, you will not stay. That is the humane policy. It's the compassionate policy, but it's also the policy consistent with national security and protecting against the massive influx of drugs we're seeing right now.
All right, the area where I was governed by the cartel. I mean, it's incredible. The drugs are incredible, and you identified a couple countries, but it's also Indonesia. I met people from Somalia. I met people from China, people from Afghanistan escaping the Taliban. So it's everybody, but a lot of them are Venezuelans, and in light of that, so many are Venezuelans, and they're economic migrants because that's a failed economy, so dependent on oil, and that fell apart. We've got so many sanctions on them, and we've got a dictator there that the United States doesn't recognize as Maduro. Would it be wise or thoughtful of the United States, and you're on Senate Foreign Relations, to rethink our policy towards Venezuela? Because as long as that economy fails, that's a driving factor into sending people out of Venezuela and into the United States. Should we revisit how we deal with Venezuela?
So I don't think it makes sense to lessen our sanctions on Venezuela. That's something Joe Biden and the Democrats very much want to do, and it's consistent with their pattern. You know, Biden across the country has a really bizarre view across the world of foreign policy, which is our friends and allies. He alienates them, he antagonizes them. But our enemies, he has a consistent pattern of appeasement, and that's true with Iran, that's true with China, that's true with Russia, that's true with North Korea, that's true with Venezuela. I think the Biden administration very much wants to lift sanctions. And Nicolas Maduro is an illegitimate dictator. He is oppressive. He is abusing, torturing, murdering his citizens. And I think the United States has rightly taken a strong stance against him. He is an enemy of America. He hates America. And I think history shows that appeasement towards dictators and bullies, it doesn't work, that the right approach is to ratchet up the pressure on Maduro, and in particular to use a strategy of carrots and sticks. So in Venezuela, control of the government is really controlled by about 3,000 generals and admirals who right now have made the judgment that they are better off sticking with Maduro. It was very close to Maduro fleeing the country. He was actually on the tarmac on his plane getting ready to take off and leave when Putin called him and said, stay there, we've got your back. But I think if we can change the calculus for the Venezuelan generals and admirals, we can get rid of Maduro and have a democratically elected leader there who actually will look out for the interest of the people of Venezuela and not for his own corrupt enrichment.
Well, I always applaud the U.S. is that we won't do business with a lot of countries because of the human rights violations, because, we do have a sense of morality and decency. But the exchange has been, and certainly we see this in Africa, is that while we won't do business with these countries, China has moved in because China will do business with these countries. So that's why I'm wondering, to the extent that we keep our foot on the neck of Venezuela, which are our neighbors, do we worry about China moving in? Because, China is in many places in South America.
Well, we don't have to worry about it because China has moved in and Russia has moved in. And the reason is Maduro is a thug. He's a communist thug. Those are his allies. He stands with China. He stands with Russia. He stands with Cuba. He is a communist. And so that dynamic, we're not going to change that but by suddenly picking a communist to cozy up and be friends with. That doesn't work. And he is an illegitimate dictator. He is not democratically elected. He has seized power by force. And I believe the people of Venezuela deserve the right to select their own leaders. And I think if they do select their own leaders, they are likely to select a leader who wants to be friends with America, not ally with China and Russia against America. That, sadly, is the status quo right now in Venezuela.
Well, I tip my hat to law enforcement in the state of Texas. They did get the man accused of executing 5 people, including a 9-year-old child, in a Friday night shooting. Then they got him without incident. But he had been deported, I think, 4 times and come back into the United States. This is your state, Texas. I assume that you have some thoughts on the incident as well as the fact that this was a successful apprehension.
Well, what this monster did was utterly horrific. My understanding is he was found under a pile of dirty laundry, hiding in a closet. and he was apprehended by a tactical unit of the Border Patrol working as part of a multi-agency manhunt that involved several days, involved hundreds of officers combing the state looking for him. What this monster did was horrific. He murdered 5 people in cold blood, including an 8-year-old child. I'm very, very glad he has been apprehended. He needs to be, and he will be prosecuted, and I believe he should be sentenced to death for the horrific crime he committed. But I also think we should pause and ask, why did this happen in the first place? Why was he here in the first place? This individual was an illegal alien who had crossed into this country over and over and over again. He'd been deported 4 times, and yet under Joe Biden's open border, ICE didn't come find him. They didn't deport him. They didn't enforce the law, and there are 5 people who are dead because this mass murdering illegal alien was allowed to stay here illegally. These are the very real consequences of the Biden open border policies. They are horrific, and I'll tell you, my home state of Texas is on the front line of paying the price for these policies.
Senator Cruz, thank you very much for joining me, sir. I hope you come back soon.
Thanks, Greta.